Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today. As we've been talking about over the past few months, local forces trained and supported by the U.S.-led coalition have retaken former ISIS strongholds in Mosul and Raqqa. And I want to follow up on Senator Cotton's question, but I want to broaden the inquiry just a little bit to ask more about what happens after we defeat ISIS on the battlefield. It seems like right now we have challenges both with Russia and Iranian forces and their proxies, and that they're moving very quickly to take advantage of conditions on the ground in order to reach their own regional objectives. So let me just start with you, Ambassador Jones. What can the United States do to push back against Russian and Iranian assertiveness and try to set the conditions for a political settlement that is in our interests and in the interests of the Syrian people?
Thank you, Senator Warren. I think most importantly, and I think what all of us have touched on, is the need for a regional approach to containing and pushing back on Iranian malign interference throughout the region. And this is, of course, going on in Syria, but it's going on in Iraq and Yemen and Bahrain and in, of course, Lebanon. So I think we need an overall regional strategy to help to contain Iran. And then I think that will bring into higher relief the malign interference that it's carrying out inside of Syria. I think it's going to be very difficult, given our limited tools, to affect Iranian conduct in Syria without weakening its other activities. I'd also say that in regards to Russia, as I mentioned earlier, there's nothing very attractive about Russian involvement in Syria. The Russians saved the Bashar regime in 2015. They haven't really known what to do with it since. As Ambassador Crocker said, this was to preserve their own status. Mm-hmm. But they are interested in cooperating with the United States for a variety of reasons. And so reaching agreement on the deconfliction zone in southwestern Syria, I think, does represent a positive model for cooperation with the Russians and also for holding the Russians accountable. Senator Fisher asked, how do you hold them accountable? Well, I think we have to hold them accountable by highlighting when they don't meet their commitments, such as if they are not able to facilitate or to force the withdrawal of Hezbollah and Iranian forces from some of those areas in southwestern Syria, then that should be highlighted and they should be called out. And then finally, I think we need to continue to press for the Geneva process. As Ambassador Crocker said, we need to be engaged diplomatically and using all of our international tools. Sorry to go on.
No, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the focus on Russia. You know, it's been Russian support for Assad that's prolonged this crisis, and of course the Iranians continue to destabilize Syria. It seems to me the Trump administration needs a clear strategy for ending the violence, for holding Assad accountable, and for making sure that the other actors on the ground don't take advantage of what happens in this post-ISIS world. There's one other thing I'd like to ask about before I'm out of time this morning, and that is about the ongoing Saudi military operation against the Houthis in Yemen and the resulting humanitarian crisis there. The situation on the ground in Yemen continues to deteriorate. Outside experts estimate that more than 10,000 Yemenis have been killed in the fighting, and millions more are at risk from famine and disease. In June, 47 senators voted to disapprove the sale of U.S. precision-guided missiles to Saudi Arabia, an expression of deep concern that many of us have had about this humanitarian crisis. So let me just ask here how the United States can use our leverage with the Saudis to limit civilian casualties and to ensure that Yemeni civilians receive food and medicine and other basic human necessities. Ambassador Jones, Ambassador Crocker, who would like to answer this one? Go ahead.
Very quickly, I will say that I think that we should be concerned about humanitarian conditions and civilian casualties in Yemen. I think the Saudis can do better. I think the solution is to work more closely with the Saudis. I think that conditioning assistance will be counterproductive and risks extending the conflict there. I think we're at a crucial moment now with the new schism between the Houthis and the General People's Congress, the party of Ali Abdullah Saleh, the recently killed former president. I think this is a time to push for a political resolution, but to do that, the Houthis have to see a very credible military threat, and they should not see any uncertainty from us in our support for the Saudi coalition.
I hear your point on this. I just want to push a little bit. I think this conflict and humanitarian crisis in Yemen is breeding more extremism in the region and continues to put us more at risk. And there's no doubt that Iran should stop making this conflict worse. But let's not forget that Saudi Arabia is the one receiving weapons from us and receiving support from us. And I think we need to hold our partners to a higher standard here. We have a crisis on our hands that's getting out of control. And so I'm out of time, so I'll stop there, Mr. Chairman. But I think we've really got to raise the bar on this one. Thank you.